And it's that, like, it sounds Southern British to me, which is more that nasally kind of, and that when it put to music, it becomes even harder to. I'm so sorry to anybody out there from London or, I don't know, East Anglia or any of these areas, but apologies. That is
Or
what my
the
ears are catered
or
to.
the cat or the cast of Mary Poppins. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. Well, hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, that's John, and it is time to listen to and discuss some music. So, John, what are you going to have me go off and check out today?
the band is the Wolfhounds.
Oh, the Wolfhounds. Not familiar with it, but God, that's a band name waiting to happen. So I'm glad somebody capitalized on it. What is the name of the track?
The Anti-Midas touch,
Okay. The
otherwise known as the Boris Johnson effect.
yeah, yeah.
So,
I was gonna say Liz Truss too, because I know that her
oh,
economic woes, while brief, were pretty catastrophic. Um, but then again, you guys have a lot of turnover rate there with your prime ministers. Sometimes I'm jealous of that, and other times I also fear for the instability that would come with it. But we're not here to talk about international politics. Let
a
me go off and
bit of
check out.
a little bit of politics.
Let me go off and check out the Anti-Midas Touch by the Wolfhounds. I don't know what it is, but this chord progression reminds me, like right out of the gate, it reminds me of, is it the Monster album by REM? Like with What's Your Frequency, Kenneth, and all that. Like this guitar tone sounds very much like the tone that you would hear throughout that album. And I'm 7 seconds into this. I don't know. I could be talking out of my ass. But it's been a while since I've listened to that album, if I'm being completely honest with you. But there is, in my mind, there is this correlation there between this guitar tone and this song and the songs on that album. Interesting stuff. It's also kind of like poppy a little bit, just the chord progression. But the sound of the guitar is like kind of angular and a little bit sharp or jagged, uh, which is no surprise. We've heard that a bunch on this channel before, and I'm really loving this cover. It's not quite an Oriole, but it's close, so I'll take it.
Worth is weighed in pounds and cents. I've got worthless pace to fence. For God-given presents became too much. He gave me the anti-Midas touch. And he gave me the anti-Midas touch. 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 The gold gleams, but it soon rots down. Soon tarnishes and blends.
Did you just say gold gleams, but something about turning to rust? Gold can't rust, sir. All right, let's pull that back and see if I caught that correctly, even if it is not exactly true.
The gold gleams, but it soon rots down.
Yeah.
Soon tarnishes and blends in with the ground. And let's just say we helped it on its way. It's shot too bright.
I love what the guitar is doing there. That dang, 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 dang. You can hear it kind of like the notes peppering That sounds really great too. So I definitely caught that line about the gold and the rusting, but I wanna focus on this guitar a bit more. Hold on.
Blends in with the ground. And let's just say we helped it on its way. It's shone too bright for your eyes in the day.
It's sparkly.
He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yes, he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Your reasons, beliefs, all float in the sky. Got plans to inflate them. I'll have a good try. You would have sold them all anyway. That's open and shutting. Yeah, you're having your say. All that's in front of you, you can count. All I
Yes.
see is
I do really like that guitar. If I'm being completely honest with you, that poppy chord progression is already kind of like getting to me because I've like had enough of it, and it's each time it comes around, it's really predictable. But that notwithstanding, this guitar part is so fun, and it's got this like ding 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 ding. It feels like light reflecting off of a precious metal, and given the name and the amount of times that gold is alluded to throughout this, it kind of like makes sense. So I think that that's kind of clever how they made the sound connote the overall theme of the song, even if it is the anti-Midas touch. For everything that there's an anti, there is the polar opposite, and they usually go hand in hand, the thoughts of them anyway. God, I really, really love the sound of that guitar as it comes shining through.
all that's in front of you, you can count. All I see is too great an amount. I've got old time religion, it really hurts. You pray to the sun and worship the dirt. And he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yes, he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yes, so I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch.
Wow.
So I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. He gave me the
Hold on. I wonder if this guitar pattern that's played here is just a slowed down version of the one that I've been, gushing about to this point. But let me pull that back. They almost got me. They almost tricked me with that. Well, they did, to be fair. But just for a fleeting moment, I was like, oh my God, the song's already over? It wasn't. It wasn't. They're just playing games.
so I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch.
That was a nice, sweet little way to end this thing. I think sweet is a I know the lyrics weren't necessarily sweet, but the sound of the music had this kind of like innocence to it, which is interesting. That's what it would connote, because I don't think any of the lyrics really screamed the song is about innocence or any of that. To be fair, I caught bits and pieces, but I don't even know. I mean, there were these. Obviously, the allusions to the Anti-Midas touch sounds like you're unlucky, or at the very least, you don't bring good fortune. In fact, I guess it would be unlucky, because if you do bring good fortune, the opposite of that wouldn't be bringing no fortune. It would be bringing bad luck or whatever. So I guess in a way that is. Um, but yeah, there was also talks about like old time religion really hurts, and something about you pray to the sun and worship the dirt. I mean, I don't know if that is judgmental or meant to be, but given the options, I would probably find myself more inclined to, you know, pray to the sun or worship the dirt. They're tangible and have been proven to affect life in a positive way. Like, to each their own. I'll just kind of leave it at that. But yeah, there were parts of the song that weren't really up my alley, or at least didn't catch my ear, or like, you know, I find particularly standoutish. The sort of rhythmic pattern of that progression was a little too cheesy for me. The tones of the guitar I really liked, and I really liked the guitar during, I guess there was the verse portions where it's doing that, all over the place, kind of quickly moving, shining reflective light, or at least that's how I envisioned, or that's what I equated the sound to. Really loved all that. I mean, the voice wasn't bad. It was just I wasn't catching all of the lyrics. So this is gonna be one of those ones where right now I'm gonna have to kind of put a pin in it, have a conversation with John, get some context, and then with that context revisit this to see where I stand with it now. Because right now it's probably like I liked 65% of this, and then the rest, either didn't land with me or I just didn't like very much. Wasn't any of it that I wholesale didn't like, but it was just sort of like, I don't know, kind of like a little apathetic to in some ways. But there were other parts, like I said before, 65% ish, that I really did enjoy. So yeah, I think a conversation with John will help frame this a bit better, and then I can listen to it and really, kind of form a more solid foundation for my opinion right now. It's not really fair. Unless something really grates at you or unless something really bowls you over, it's kind of hard to like quantify or, assign a degree of, fandom or dislike for a song. So I really do love this cover photo. That's neither here nor there. So yeah, let's go get that added bit of context from John, and I'm going to check this out again, and hopefully I'll get a clearer picture of it. I'm sure even the conversation with John will help me bring into focus more my own feelings and opinion on this. Sometimes just one listen isn't enough, guys. We've had that numerous times, but like I said, in-depth conversation, perhaps another listen or two, and things start to take shape. So let's begin that process by running back to John and chopping this one up.
Doris Loki's back. So you've had a listen to the Anti-Midas Touch by the Wolfhounds. Tell me your thoughts.
It's going to sound kind of crazy because of a conversation that we just had when we recorded the Hum episode, but maybe for very different reasons, I've ended up at a similar place as you. And that is, I don't really know where I stand on this one. There are parts of it that I really adored, and there are other parts that, by the halfway, two-thirds mark, I kind of was over. I don't want to say I was annoyed by them, but I was just kind of like, okay, I've heard this before earlier. And honestly, if I'm being honest, I feel like I've heard this before in other songs. And that I'll just come right out and say that part, the one that really got me, is that poppy chord progression. Because it's just so like it sounded like I've heard that a million times with maybe different tone, but the same pattern. But go
You
on.
have heard it in another song a lot.
Okay.
If you didn't get it in the first 10 seconds, then you'll have to be pointed out to you. But there's a very famous song that ripped this off completely.
Okay. When we get to it, please let me know. But I will say that like the tune begins with a bit of this like sharp angular guitar cutting through this chord progression for a few seconds before the drum roll ushers in the rest of the band. And I will say that I doubt this is what you were going to say, but I was reminded of an album, not necessarily a song, but maybe a little bit of a song, but the Monster album by REM and the guitar tones on that album very much reminded me of the guitar tones on like What's Your Frequency, Kenneth. That is really kind of what stuck out to me. I saw you make a couple facial features, but you have a pretty good poker face, so I have no idea how far away from this floating bullseye I've come. But that's the one thing that's very far. Okay, great. Terrific. Well, then I'll save all my energy to be surprised by the song or the band that you name. But yeah, this did remind me a little bit of the guitar tones on that
Fair
album.
enough.
Um, with the full band joined in after the guitar's head start, we get a clearer picture of the slightly manic, upbeat tempo that we're working with here. And while it's still early days, I think it's safe to say we're firmly in the realm of this post-punk with a little bit of the jagged guitars and frenetic pace. Um, but it is the one of the more poppy versions of post-punk I've ever. In fact, you've laughed about the term that is bandied about over here for pop punk. I could call this pop post-punk, and it'd be a perfectly apropos genre designation for this. So the band switches things up slightly as what is the first verse begins to take shape, and the guitars shift from that crashing blast to more of a jangly pop kind of sound as the singer begins to deliver the opening stanza. And I catch the first line with certainty as he sings, "Worth his weight in pounds and cents." Now, I only heard this, I didn't read it, but that's ripe for a pun there. So I don't know if it's pounds and cents like CENTS or cents like common, for example. But the next two lines are a little bit hazy for your boy here. I think he sings something about a fence and then follows with an allusion to something God given and it being too much. This is really British. And it's that, like, it sounds Southern British to me, which is more that nasally kind of, and that when it put to music, it becomes even harder I'm so sorry to anybody out there from London or, I don't know, East Anglia or any of these areas, but apologies. That is
Or
what my
the
ears are catered
or
to.
the or the cast of Mary Poppins. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, look, I wasn't given a role based on my ability to do the accent. I'm only telling you what I'm hearing and how I'm trying to decipher it.
sure.
All
Yeah.
right, mate. I think he sings something about again a fence and then this allusion to a God-given and it being too much. But I hear him clearly resolve the verse with the title of the track as he sings, "He gave me the Anti-Midas touch." And the chorus is then spent essentially repeating this not so lucky lot in life. And the chorus really leans into the popular side of post punk with a very simple and catchy chord progression. Things quickly shift back into the verse, and I think here is where I really fall in love with what the guitar is doing in the verse because I'm able to like hold it up against that chord progression that by the second time I've heard I'm over. But this is like darty and bouncy, and it reminds me of the way light would shine off of a precious metal. And you know how I'm a sucker for music creating or fortifying the subject matter. And while I know his is the anti-Midas touch, you can't think of the opposite of something without thinking of its opposite. So I'm thinking of gold, and he's mentioned it a couple times too. I think at this point, or he's about to. So yeah, I'm seeing this light shine off of gold when I hear that higher guitar stuff in the verse that I think is really really great. So again, I think I have a slightly more successful go around of lyric deciphering. As it appears, our lead singer is really going through a serious case of coping, at least it sounds like to me. He sings gold gleams, but it soon rusts down, which seems like a lie that he's trying to convince himself of because gold doesn't rust. So I just thought that was an odd choice of what. He then continues his on his quest to observe the silver lining that surrounds his predicament of possessing an anti-Midas touch, as he adds, soon tarnishes and blends in with the ground. Let's just say you helped it on its way. It shone too bright for your eyes in the day, or at least I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of those few lines. The band runs through another chorus before it shifts into the briefest instrumental segue before giving way to another verse, albeit one with a bit more emphatic energy. He sings of reasons and beliefs all floating in the sky and of pensioners breaking them. The them being the aforementioned reasons and beliefs, I guess. Uh, Otherwise, I don't know what this generic them is that he's used. He then claims this you would have sold them all anyway. And then in the final line, he sings something about open and shutting and having your say before launching into another chorus. Might have caught more words, but it seems to be making less and less sense. The subsequent, all I know is that the guy, whatever he touches, turns to shit. It sounds like. The subsequent portion reads like a verse, but it is musically a bit more divergent from what the previous or from the previous iterations. So maybe this is a post-chorus of sorts. Regardless of whatever you want to label it, there is some very infectious guitar noodling in this bit. I really enjoy its hooky melodic nature. In fact, I was so invested in it that I didn't really catch any of the lyrics until he got to the point where he sings, "Old time religion really hurts. You pray to the sun and worship the dirt." Now, to be fair and not get on a soapbox, but I would find praying to the sun and worshiping the dirt easier and more understandable than some sky dad who lords over every facet of life, whether mundane or monumental, given that both those exemplars, the sun and dirt, provide life and sustain life. So I don't know, they seem more tangible, easier to invest in. Another
You're
chorus.
so pagan.
Maybe I am. You know, us Yanks, we're known for our paganism, not our over evangelical beliefs or 9 different flavors of Christianity, and even our own made up things like snake worship and somehow Jesus ending up in Utah. Another chorus kicks off, which is then followed by this truncated 2-line half stanza that then goes back into a half chorus before all the calamity is put to rest after a tight little drum roll at the 2:46 mark. The guitar resonates for a bit before we get treated to this jangly little motif on the guitar, over top of which the singer dismounts with the following. "So I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. You gave me the anti-Midas touch." And then the guitar line sees us through for a couple of seconds before it comes to more of a gentle ending, especially compared to all the music that kind of led up to this. Lyrically, there were bits and pieces that made more sense than others. At least during this one listen, I was able to afford the song. Perhaps more would be gleaned from them had I listened to this multiple times or had the lyrics pulled up, but that's cheating. But part of the joy of doing this channel is the provision of context which we grant each other after our listening experience. So I hope maybe you can shed some additional light on this for me that'll help form a more solid opinion, or at least inform a second listen of this tune. Musically, it was pretty good. You'd be hard pressed not to get wrapped up in the energy of the track, even if the main chord progression was a bit poppy, rudimentary, and I would dare say by the end of the song, abused one too many times. There were still plenty of other facets of the music that were more interesting, which kept things fresh despite following a rather predictable blueprint. So would I say overall it was a good first, I would say overall it's a good first listen and introduction to the band, but please tell me more about this track. And honestly, I'm kind of jonesing to know what this is a ripoff or who ripped this off, I would assume is the case, because you know I clearly missed the mark with my comparison to the guitar tones on Monster by REM.
Yeah, no, it's the opening bit, but yeah, I'll get to that in a sec. So this, thanks for that, Andy. There's 2 reasons why I picked this track, this band. It's an early example of them, and it's quite an interesting where they came from and where they ended up. Where they ended up is reformed and still going now, but in between, yeah, you'll see. So British band formed in Romford, which is part of London-ish, in 1985. They are labeled as indie pop, jangle pop, noise pop, indie rock, and other shit. So members are David Callahan, lead vocals, Paul Clark, bass, Andy Golding, guitar and backing vocals, Andy Bolton, guitar, and Frank Stebbing, drums and percussion. So singer David Callahan is always good for a quote, and you may remember him as we have met him before as one of the members of Moonshake.
Mm.
This is the band before. So he said that they started at an early age, in quotes. We would turn up to gigs and it would feel like everybody there was 10 years older than us. Even our first reviews in the music papers were describing us as little kids. We were 18. The Kinks were 17 when they started having hits, but this wasn't what people were used to anymore. They were used to people in their 20s and 30s. We were no-hopers who just left school working in warehouses and shops. So after their first EP in 86, the band had the track Feeling So Strange again, included in the seminal Enemy compilation tape C86 that we've spoken about before. Real sort of primer for that sort of indie jangle pop. It was really, really influential, massive tape. Callahan again, never short quote, says, "It didn't occur to us to actually record something properly or to do our best song. We figured we'd never record Feeling So Strange again. Otherwise, as it wasn't one of our best songs, we'll just throw it away on a tape. Who's interested in a tape? We already had the Anti-Midas Touch and Me as potential big singles if we had the money behind us, but we were dumbasses. In the 6 hours or so we had to record that afternoon, we could have done the Anti-Midas Touch really well, and it would have been on a tape that ended up selling tens of thousands." So not long after that, their debut album, Unseen Ripples from a Pebble, followed in 1987. That's that kitty there. Not landing in any convenient sort of genre pigeonhole at the time, it got mixed reviews from the music press. It is kind of a mishmash of things going on, but it's really interesting to see how they started and where they ended up. So AllMusic said their first album mixed the pop tunes of the Smiths and the Velvet Underground with the off-center style of The Fall. There's a little bit of Marky Smith in his vocals there, I think. Unseen Ripples from a Pebble was not well received by the music press. Fans of the indie world thought differently, however, and made Anti-Midas Touch and Indie Club favourites. Both Callahan's vocals and Andy Golding's guitars brought to mind contemporaries' The Wedding Present, but with an almost jazzy outlook. All in all, Unseen Ripples from a Pebble was a great indie pop album. Not groundbreaking, not a leap forward in a musical invention, just great fun. And I'll go along with that. When I found out about the Wolfhounds, I thought I'd go off and do my research. And you know me, I'm very conservatively ended up by accident buying all 4 albums and some other stuff as well. And yeah, their latest stuff is really impressive, but we'll get on to that in a sec. So this was a sort of minor hit for them at the time. It's their first sort of big song-ish. So it was a good place to start. So the lyrics: worth his weight in pounds and cents, as in common sense.
Okay.
I've got ways and places to fence. My God-given presence became too much. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. And he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. 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 Gold gleams.
I'm sorry, but the touch that he would inject, I think I found myself, like, when I was predicting it, like, leaning into it a little bit, because I thought he was adding a little bit of extra seasoning on that one.
Again, that's a bit Marky Smith as well.
Yes, yeah, that's fair.
Gold gleams, but it soon rusts down. Of course it doesn't. Fool's gold does, though.
Yeah.
Interestingly. Soon tarnishes and blends in with the ground. Let's just say you helped it on its way. It shone too bright for your eyes in the day. Touch. He gave me that touch. He gave me that touch. Yes, he gave me that touch. He gave me that touch. Touch. Your reasons, beliefs, all float in the sky. Your pensioners break them. Well, have a good try. You would have sold them all anyway. Now it's open and shutting. Yeah, you're having your say. Touch. All that's in front of you, you can count. All I see is too great an amount. A good old-time religion really hurts. You pray to the sun and worship the dirt. Touch. And he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yeah, he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yeah, he gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. Yeah, so I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. So I can wallow and feel truly at home. You polish your buckles and pretend you're alone. He gave me the Anti-Midas touch. So, well, not credited as a so the song is credited by all members of the band that have written it. Musician Andrew Springham contributed the distinct harmonica parts heard on the final studio recording. And you didn't, but a lot of people have pointed out that the opening guitar in this is pretty much note for note what inspired Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Let's do it again. Ding, ding, ding. And even the drums coming in, it's
Yeah.
exactly the same as the start.
Yeah,
It really is.
interesting.
So very
Give that
interesting.
a listen.
Yeah.
It's just funny how tone and approach can change something so much. You know what I mean, or give it you see it or hear it in a completely different light, right? You know what I mean. So that's it. Wow, this is
Yeah.
very
I mean, it's
comparatively much more bright and less like
exactly.
buggy than
Exactly. Yeah. Callahan has commented that as soon as we got attention, there was some panic in the band, with a couple of members thinking that we need to be more commercial. It seemed ridiculous to me. We didn't have the chops for that, but we were a democracy, so that's how it went for a while. So original members Bolton and Clark were replaced by David Oliver and Matt Dainton. Big fan of. The Wolfhounds sound developed into a denser, less poppy sound.
Okay.
Their second album, Bright and Guilty, was released in '89. It's a decent album as well. Not bad at all. And then the sound really progressed with in the same year, Blown Away, which is this one here. Again, now really interesting, like double almost covers, because it could really be that, but it's that. This is fantastic. And then the year after that, Attitude, which is this one here, which again has actually got Attitude on the back rather than on the front, but there you go.
Well, here's
Really-
a question for you, John, because speaking of cover art, I loved the thumbnail. I mean, I love it because, I love wildlife, but it also reminded me very much of my beloved Orioles because that bird looked very close to a Baltimore Oriole. Is that because I see hanging behind you? Is that the
That's
the
the
album?
yeah.
So what was the visage that I was looking at? Is that a singles cover for the track or
I'm
what
not
was
sure. I can't remember. It might be no. I don't think it's no. It's not on the inside of that. It must be on like a single version.
that? Okay.
Yeah, and just to show you for completion, this came out really reasonable. It's all the complete John Peel sessions.
Oh wow, cool.
And you got some really nice. There's the guys there. Yeah, really decent. 12 songs. Of course, the first one being the Anti-Midas Touch.
Yeah.
You have some people saying that the Peel's version, the Peel Sessions version, is better than this. Normally they'd be right, but they're not in this case.
I would imagine that to put out like on that album, how many songs are there on that Peel Sesh album?
12.
So, how many sessions does it require to get to 12? Like how many songs does a band typically do?
So it's usually 2 or 3. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 sessions.
Okay, so yeah, so they did 4 different sessions with Peel that yielded about a dozen tracks or so.
Yes. So March '86, May '87, May '87, and January '88.
Ah, nice. So Peel clearly was at least, a fan
Yeah,
of these guys,
big
had
fan.
them on that many times, yeah.
Third and fourth albums they found themselves in Sonic Youth territory, which is like catnip to my ears, interspersing raging guitars with elegant compositional exercises. That actually proved to be the last release for the band in their first iteration as they split early in 1990. Callahan, again, good for a quote, said, "We put out 3 really good albums in the space of 15 months that sounded like no one else. We even started to look good, but no one gave a shit. People say if this band was from Boston, they'd have been massive and this kind of thing, but no one was paying attention. We've been through 4 labels in 5 years and it just wasn't happening. We weren't getting any more chances. We'd reached rock bottom. There was no way out." So Golding and Stebbing formed the band Crawl, while Callahan joined forces with Margaret Fielder for Moonshake and Matt Dayton formed Mother Earth, a fantastic acid jazz band.
Okay.
Over the years, Callahan received offers to perform with or be interviewed about the Wolfhounds, but by that time had established himself, his afternoon shake, as a freelance ornithologist and had no interest in revisiting his musical past. However, he was finally convinced into reforming the Wolfhounds in 2006 for a gig organised by Bob Stanley of St. Etienne to play at the ICA in London alongside Roddy Frame and Phil Wilson to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the C86 cassette. Callahan said, "We started playing together and it actually worked. I won't say it was like the old days. It was better. It seemed like something we should continue with because it felt like a creative enterprise immediately." This event proved a turnaround in Callahan's attitude. In quotes, "I said yes, and it worked. So I made a decision to say yes to everything, regardless of whether I had the time or not, and I've done that ever since." But since they reformed from that, they have released 2 more albums. Untied Kingdom brackets, or How to Come to Terms with Your Culture in brackets in 2016, and Electric Music in 2020. The Wolfhounds' ongoing ethos is to play as a current creative act rather than an exercise in indie nostalgia. Callahan, once again, rent a quote, says, "We do occasionally throw an old song into the set like the Anti-Midas Touch, but rather like a band like the Nightingales, we go around playing songs from our latest LP. That's what it's always been like for us. I was always inspired by the attitude of The Fall, where you go and see them promoting Dragnet, but they'll already be playing Grotesque, or Wire would play 154 when Chairs Missing had only just come out." These are 2 bands that I love. I'm not ashamed of what I've done in the past, and I'll reflect on it and incorporate bits of it, but I'm always looking forward. I want to die with lots of unfinished work sitting there waiting to be dealt with, which is quite a good sort of outlook on life. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you this. It's like their starting position. It's quite a nice jangly indie pop song. It's got some bits in it that are really interesting. And then where they go from there, I mean, as I say, some of it's outstanding and really, really interesting in terms of guitar work.
I wonder if the cover of the single wasn't a foreshadowing for his
Yeah,
interest in ornithology, given what you said. And I mean, the cover looks like it's stripped right out of an Audubon Society book or something like that, devoted to all these different kinds of smaller birds. It's really cool.
yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will do some more Wolfhounds
Cool.
with some more later and interesting
I'm
stuff.
very much looking forward to this more mature, he said, without a lot of confidence, sound that it sounds like they developed as they,
Yeah,
progressed.
more experimental and arty, for want of another word, as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and guttural as well. Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for listening, Sandy. I should
Thank
wrap
you.
things up. Folks out there, please tell us what you think. If you like this, do hit the like button. And drop some comments. We'd love to hear what you think. If you're familiar with the Wolfhounds, this album, later stuff as well. If you got any suggestions of what we should listen to, I have my thoughts. But yeah, pop them on. We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't subscribed already, you fools, you stupid fools. Please do. We really appreciate everybody who does support the channel. So strap on your helmet and join us. That being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.